Welcome to Expedition Self with Sam Parado, a lifelong learner and entrepreneur. Sam is the creator of the growth-producing worlds of Expedition Self, where seekers hang out so they can live a conscious life of love and personal fulfillment. As she shares 4 decades of studying, guiding, and teaching, you'll learn how to go inside and build an empowered relationship with the self. Ignite your self-development process with Sam.
Hello. I'm so glad you're here.
Happy to be here, Sam.
And I'm going to say to my audience, I'm so glad you're here also. We have such a special night tonight. And I just want to tell you a little bit about this gentleman that's, you're looking at him while I talk over here. So I'm going to read some of my notes. This is Benjamin Fergusson, and he goes by Benny, and he's the founder of Movement Monk, which is movement medicine courses, and also the Movement Plus app. Gosh, what makes him super special is he is an avid dedicated student of all things related to movement and the body. And he's a person who understands and holds sacred the energetic flow and capacity of the body to heal itself and powerfully support life. He personally overcame chronic anxiety and depression and pain and movement restrictions to become stronger and more flexible, able to live a more adventurous life. And we're going to get to hear a lot about his own experience of finding his way to and through the body. His studies have taken him from the Shaolin monks. And I just want to ask you, actually, before I finish this, Shaolin are the one from Kung Fu Panda, right?
That's a good question. I'm not actually sure. It's been a while since I've seen Kung Fu Panda, but I'm sure that there would be a lot of Shaolin references. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, let me keep going because I want to say more about you. And somatic movement work, he's done animal and childhood development, and through embodiment practices, breath work, Tai Chi, Qigong, and meditation. I just want to say the depth of his knowledge and empathy for connecting with the body is, in my estimation, just magical. And I just want to share a quote that he wrote. I don't know when you wrote it. You can tell us about it after I speak it. But he said, "Give me a stiff, tense body, a person ready for change, and just 5 to 10 minutes a day. And within 30 to 60 days, that person will have a body that moves without fear of injury, with a balance of strength and flexibility, and a system to keep improving mobility over and over again." I love that quote. I also am somebody, I'm just going to say this, I'm somebody that has believed that my own body can't do that. And so getting to meet you, getting to work with you has just been so profoundly eye-opening. And of course, with my entire platform being to help people go inside, you can't just do it emotionally. You can't just do it right through experiences. You have to actually connect in the same way with your relationship with your body. So with that note, I really would love it. Oh, by the way, I think Chris answered. Sounds good. I am in the background. Okay.
Just talking about Kung Fu with David Carradine. That's a great series. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, somebody I'm sure also will write in about Kung Fu Panda. But I actually would love to just hear a little bit about your story in terms of finding your body or being connected to your body, and kind of how you landed in a place where on your website it says sensitive people. And I want to talk about what that means through the body.
Yeah. Well, I suppose I started life at least to the point where I started to become self-aware enough, where I felt a lot of anxiety all the time. And I didn't really have an outlet to communicate it. I just kind of, I felt like, I suppose, like the black sheep of my family. And then it was a challenging place, like I would often get called sensitive, and, big emotions and all sorts of things. And so I learned at a really young age that wasn't safe. essentially. That wasn't okay. And ultimately, it became my strength. But it took some time to really see what that was, where I felt a lot of those things I was picking up on my environment. I was able to attune to that, to the people, to things happening around me. And I found it difficult to process, in a physical experience. And so I kind of, a lot of things happen which we can talk about, but I started to see myself as sort of like this anxious warrior, like a warrior, like I'd be always worrying about things.
Like a WORR one versus a
Yeah,
WRR.
and I've always been really inspired by. It's funny that kung fu references that are made by martial arts, and particularly the older martial arts, and the ideal of these Shaolin warriors. And there was something about that I connected with, and I started just questioning. And so I really appreciated their sense of peace, but yet they were really like strong warriors underneath that. So my journey's really been a lot about uncovering a lot of those sensitivities that I felt from birth, and seeing how they're actually a superpower, a strength. And along the way, my body's kind of led me to that place, because I've had to ultimately connect with that and connect with all of the experiences that move through this physical vessel. And rather than just cognitively understand, like, I suppose there is an intelligence that is moving through our body. And so I've been interested in that. And that's where I've continued to meet other people as well, realizing that I'm not alone in that, and that often we see this body as just sort of like a vehicle of function, and yet there's so much more. And I see, kind of through meeting, the inherent restriction of having a body, there is freedom that we can start to realize. And I realize that a lot of the things that we experience, they feel restrictive, but that's a false assumption, in that the fact that we do have physical limitations, the more we can effectively embrace them, there's space and freedom that gets created in how we meet that. And so that's kind of led me around the body of work that I share. And it moved me out of, I had undiagnosed scoliosis in my 20s that got shown by an acute injury that I did. And through that, I've been able to heal that. And it's sometimes hard to talk about as well, because scientifically and medically, it is an uncurable condition. And often for a lot of people, they have to revert to surgery and all of that sort of thing to find relief. But I'm a walking example that things can change. And I do see miracles happen all the time with people. And so that's kind of me in a nutshell, and happy to talk further about it all.
Well, I have bunches of questions that just came in terms of what you were saying. I'm when you talk about all the sensitivities that you grew up with that nobody else was talking about, right, and not knowing how to relate to them, and that the way it sounds like you worked with that was to actually be very physically demanding on yourself.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I'm interested in what was happening in your mind that had that be the continuum that you worked on there.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. Early on, through my youth, I suppose with all those sensitivities that I was experiencing, I learned in a way to override them through kind of like this continual achievement. So I dedicated myself to sports, and I excelled in the sport of volleyball. I did a lot of other sports, but volleyball was the highest. I played at a national level, and I then excelled in physical things, and I prided myself in that. And for me, it was sort of like a way to essentially like experience a sense of validation.
Mm.
And so it was like an externalization of like my body gives me this sense and this experience. And so although it would seem on the surface that I was like continually, like I looked physically fit, and I think that I felt good, but I wasn't really connected to my actual body, because underneath it there was still that little kid that was scared, and created this vehicle almost as like a false sense of security, or a body armor in a way, to protect that little kid. And
Body
but yeah,
armor, literally, is what you're saying.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Like through those days, I was probably I'd have to convert it into pounds, but about 20 kilos heavier than what I am today, which is about 110 kilos, and that was like all muscle. And so like I kind of built this structure, this kind of tank to live in. But then that was the thing that brought me down. It was sort of like you wind up the crank so much. I built up so much tension in my body that eventually it like collapsed. And that's kind of what
So
was.
taut is what you're saying. It couldn't hold. Is that what you're just?
Yes. Yeah. And so like I kind of learned that like we've all got different things that are happening with our body, and if we're not attuned to them, then whatever we put our focus on magnifies. And so I wasn't attuned to my body. I was attuned on an external thing of like my body being this way equals this level of self-identity. And the more I can do that, then the more my identity gets strengthened. But I was just basically building like a false self. And inside, I knew that wasn't in alignment. It was like the truth of me that has always been there was whispering. It's like, hey, this is who you are. This is what you're aligned with. This is your truth. And I was like, sure, whatever. And on we go, because no, this is who I am. And so it was a conflicted relationship. And so that was kind of, that was something that took a long time. And I'm grateful for the chronic pains and challenges that I went through. I'm happy to say I can be grateful for now. But it did meet me with that which was out of alignment. And yeah.
One of the things I think about when we really do go inside, we don't just put language on it, but we actually go feel something.
Yes.
And we're brought to it because something changes in our life that we don't think we quite chose.
Yes.
Is that I think about this a lot when I see people talk about their lives, is that when you're going through it, it's not a happy space. It's hard. And at least when I'm going through those moments, I have the part that's holding on. No, if I just did this, it would be fine. And then I have this other part that's like, no, something's here. But even that mindset, no, there's something for me to see. Even that has to get cultivated.
Yes.
Can you speak about that a little bit for yourself as you went through your own transformation?
Yeah. It's it can be challenging, because the realization, when you go from someone who can effectively sort of do whatever they want with their body, to it's difficult to stand, to walk, to breathe, like basic functions. You you essentially don't have many other choices other than to focus on what's happening.
Mm.
And that, and so that could seem like a real restriction, and it did for a period kind of pull me into a very depressed, sort of low state, because like I felt victim to my circumstances. And so the gift, though, was that it drowned out all the noise, and it brought me back to the, like, what's happening here. I basically got to a point where I'm like, I cannot escape this. So do I want to keep living this way? Because I was in my 20s at the time, and it was kind of a challenging time because your social environment is is very contrasted, and everyone's, fairly active at that point. Yet I'm kind of walking around like I'm 80, or well, I hope now when I'm 80, it'll be a very different reality, but like a degenerated 80, and so it brought me back to the body. The first thing that started to happen was I had to come to terms with the experience of being present with my body. And so that was initially challenging because I had no reference points, because I'd spent so much time over there, and it's like, come back here, everything you need is here. But then as soon as I would come back here, I would say, well, here is painful, here is restricted, here is uncomfortable.
I feel things.
I'd rather be over there. And so I started to develop this understanding of, okay, this is where we start, like, this is how addictive tendencies and how our body then can inform our behaviors and all sorts of things, because we're in constant reaction and avoidance to all of the feelings that are there. And particularly then that being compounded as, well, no, you're a man and you shouldn't feel things as well. Like, that's a weakness. So I had to move through all of that to kind of get to the core of it. And so there was like a sifting process of every sort of way that I had interpreted. I saw that they were going through a filter of limiting perspectives. And so within there is this kind of clear message and signal and communication that is ever present. But I found that we do need to filter through a lot of the distortions that we gather about all of the beliefs that we carry and all that sort of stuff. And I realized that all of that was held in my body. And so it took some time to sort of filter through, and it's an ongoing process, because like, it's easy to gather stuff and accumulate. And so it's like a continual sort of cleaning the lens. And from that point, things started to get clear in that communication. Yeah.
What you're describing, where you did that through your body, I really would say that I didn't do it through the body. I did it a lot through emotional. I did a lot of creative visualization work, and I did some gestalt work and things where you could act it out and become it,
Yes.
And so I am completely fascinated that you found your way there, really through the body, and the emotions came with it, I
Yes.
think, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, how did you know to listen?
Yeah,
Like, at all, right? Like, I just think for most people, we do listen to ourselves, but it's a lot of just chatter, not
yeah.
really listen,
Yes. Yeah. Well, I suppose it was a process of distillation. I suppose there's been questions that have been there ever since I can remember. And so my nature is to question things. I observe social norms and, like, literally everything, to the point where it's like, well, why do we sleep on these soft beds? you know? What's the effect of that? And so then I look into, like Japanese don't
Right.
predominantly sleep on, they sleep on tatami mats, and so they sleep on hard surfaces, and all of these things bring a different relationship with our body, because you inherently have to kind of meet the experience. Like I'm sidetracking, but I'll come back to it. It's like there's a principle that I often use of like, the more we embrace with soft, then the more we learn hard, and so through this questioning of like, okay, well, I'm continually embracing soft surfaces, for example, and so it's doing the softening for me, and therefore I don't have to, right? So I don't have to learn how to relax into my body into this, because like the couch or the bed or whatever this soft cushion is doing for me.
Mhm.
And so these questions then, it put me into a little bit of I suppose a warrior's journey, in a way where I did intentionally put myself in the face of uncomfortable situations.
Oh,
And um, one of the practices that opened me up to that was the practice of standing meditation. And so I'd done a lot of things prior to that, meditative practices, and I'd also done a lot of the, I suppose, mind related things. I became a master practitioner in neurolinguistic programming and NLP, and various different forms of hypnotherapy and all sorts of things. So I was very interested in that, which definitely helped me start to be able to have language, to be able to comprehend and cognitively process
mhm.
my experiences and see, the mental patterns. But it continued to sort of come back to, when I started that practice of standing meditation, there's just your posture, whatever posture you're in, and your breath, and that's kind of it. And just your relationship with your environment, particularly gravity in this case. And so as I was starting to go through it, and this started when I was quite debilitated, like, so I couldn't even stand up straight. So I'm
Wow.
kind of like, I'm in this sort of crooked posture and just breathing and sitting in the discomfort. And as that's happening, all like so much is flooding to the surface,
Ah,
so much unprocessed emotion. I didn't always know how to describe it. Like one of the first things that happened when I started to focus more internally in my like physical practice was I felt so much rage and anger, and no one would have picked it, not even myself. Like I was always, people would, and still it does get commented on that like I'm calm and that sort of thing, but it was a manufactured calm for a long time,
right.
and underneath it was this anger. It took me a long time to even be able to recognize it, because like I saw a lot of anger in my father, and so it's like my system said, no, that's not safe, you don't do that, particularly you don't do that to anyone else. And that's been a journey in and of itself, to see the inherent power of anger. It's not a negative thing. And so you kind of you be with all of that, and then I started to experience things more as an energy, that's a potential energy of movement through the body. And
Can I just
yeah.
hold you right there? That's important, right? Because I think a lot of times we don't realize that the emotional work isn't the end game, right? That the real thing is to tap into what I think you're starting to talk about here, right? And I think it's a super, I just really want to mark it so much for anybody who's listening to us, because we live in a society that we don't have a great relationship with emotions. But when you talk about emotions, people don't get that what it's really getting you to is that energy that you're describing.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Like we could see emotions as like almost a sentence standing for energy in motion. And often we experience, and I went through this directly, to start to, with enough introspection, you start to notice that there's energy that can get stuck. There's energy that can be quite chaotic. So you start to notice, well, how does all the energy behave in my body? And so this is one of the things that moved me through what I would call anxiety, which was like an anxious energy, which was very kind of like this. And so by trying to sort of comprehend it cognitively, the energy's still doing this, right? And so like probably the deepest thing that I could do cognitively was at least give myself permission to see it, to feel it, for that experience to be there, and so it's kind of like we're going through noticing the energy of movement, and the more that moves, then I find that then the more pleasant the experience of the body. Yeah.
Well, we are actually going to talk a little bit about that space that you described, but we have to go on break here. And so it'll be a couple of minutes, and when we come back, we'll pick up there. All right.
Times TV.
In a world filled with constant noise and distractions, where finding meaning feels like an endless search. Introducing Daily Dispatch, your daily pathway to inner growth and self-discovery. Each day, receive a personalized self-growth prompt. Crafted by a seasoned growth expert with over 40 years of teaching personal mastery. Join thousands of professionals who have found clarity and purpose with Daily Dispatch. Start your free trial today and unlock a more meaningful life, one day at a time. Daily Dispatch. Discover your inner world. Live more consciously in every moment. Get your free trial at www.expeditionself.com/daily-dispatch.
Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse, walk a mile in my shoes.
All right, well, we're back. And just for everyone, so they know who we are, I'm Sam Parado, and I'm the host of Expedition Self. And this is Benny Fergusson, aka the Movement Monk. And we've been having an awesome Go Inside conversation. And actually, thank you so much for being with us. I have a couple things I just want to say. I would love you to get to share something with the audience that you do from a movement standpoint. But I have one piece I'd like to talk about before we do that. And also, if I could just put a plant, is that when you and I first started working, there were things that you would have me say about my best healing. And I'm hoping that you might share a little bit about that also around the exercise, if that's okay.
Of course.
But one of the things when I was early on, like in my 20s, and I started to really just get all hooked on going inside growth work and the idea of having a more whole relationship with myself, was that it became very clear that when I was constrained and I allowed myself to be constrained, that those were the best moments. And then that what went with that is moments where I was completely a mess and it went sideways and it didn't look the way I wanted it to look. If I would stay back in those moments and really be with them, that I would come out with so much more freedom to be who I was, right? Like to just drop in and be okay with my anger, which I didn't have great relationship with either, and to be okay with what would come out of my mouth rather than going through it 1,000 times after I'd say it, you know? And so when you were describing the constraint of the injury that you experienced, there was a parallel thought process there.
Yes.
And you talk so much about freedom, but I just don't think people realize that the constraints produce the freedom.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. And we all have that to varying degrees, and and I think that there is that continual, like we're continually anchored back to that, even at the most simple level of, like, if you get a cold, like we see that as, oh, I'm sick, I can't do all the things that I want to do and all of that sort of stuff. I sort of see these things as like evolutionary processes to bring you back to what's important. It might be that you've been burning the candle at both ends, and that wisdom in your body says, hey, I'm going to slow you down because you're not listening. And we can listen to that, and it's actually a very beautiful moment to surrender to that. And I do find then that's when we're kind of in collaboration with this force that is far greater than us. And here we are in the middle participating, and that's a very different experience. And it does become a choice, of how do you want to meet these restrictions. And it's often the way that we meet them that then is the precursor for, like, the on-flow effect of it. Yeah.
I see this, I've done a lot of my work is in business environments or organizations. And so I watch that, but how do you say that? How we meet the constraint. And so I watch when people don't really meet it in a way that is uplifting for both sides or all sides, then what you see is that's actually the way they treat people. And if they're in power, that's actually the way any resistance from someone that works for them is met with an overpowering, please stop doing this, and it could get more extreme as a way to get rid of the resistance, right?
Yes.
And so this, to me, is one of the hardest things to help people connect with, is that it's like in this moment that you can meet that constraint in a new way that's cooperative and appreciative and doesn't make it wrong, that it immediately translates to the quality of our relationships.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I do feel that is, it's a real personal responsibility piece. And because you can't force anyone to be there. And I do notice, like, just in my own self-reflection as to the way I continue to meet myself and those constraints within myself then overflows in the way I meet them in all interactions. And yeah, that's an ongoing process. But you can't kind of give that which you do not have.
That's it. Can you say
Yeah.
that again? You can't?
You can't really give that which you do not have.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And like I also fell into a trap of that, for like where I would sort of try to contrive and give, even though I did not have it, or I did have it, but I wasn't connected to it. Yeah.
Kind of was living up here, but then you wouldn't. And we talk about this with me, right? To make sure it's going deeper and deeper into my physical experience,
Yes.
which grounds it,
Yes. Yeah.
So, did you have something you'd like to share with people? And I don't have no idea what that might be. So I kind of want to turn it over to you to lead us in whatever
Yeah.
you'd like to lead in. And
Yeah,
just so you
let's.
know, it's 8:38, so we have about 10 minutes max to do that. I don't know
Okay.
how long it takes. So
All right, we'll go through a simple little process. We've been talking a lot about connecting with the body and meeting it as the energy moves through it. So we may as well just start to work with that. I find this one of the first things with connecting with the body, with doing all these things, is establishing a sense of safety in that connection. Particularly if we haven't connected for a while, it can be tumultuous. So we'll start off and just, for everyone who's here and willing to participate, just feeling the hands, just rubbing the hands together. And the hands are really, let's say the end goal was to be fully unified with the intelligence of our body. At the moment, we're dipping our toe into that power source. And
okay, I just want to say something to the audience now. Everyone should be doing this with us so that you get the experience and you actually get to connect with it. You don't just watch us have fun doing it.
Yeah, I often say that like feeling is understanding, and there might be parts of your brain that will sort of write this off. What am I doing? What's this silly exercise? And to that, let that be there. And the way of understanding this, the body, is through feeling. And so as we're doing this, let's just start to we'll upregulate our breathing a little bit and just breathe in for about 4 and out for about 4. So we're just going to bring in a bit more life force into the system. So, and it can be in through your nose, out through your nose, or your mouth, whatever you would like at this point. There's no need to restrict it. We can, of course.
I'm very hot. I got very hot there doing that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So we're really bringing in this sense of, often we can feel disconnected from like everything that I have to draw from my power, but like we're taking in this life force all the time. And so this already, like the body to rejuvenate, it needs building blocks, and life force is the primary building block that we can use for that. And so we're feeling our hands, and you might be noticing an increased sensation in the hands, and we're upregulating the breathing for a moment. Now, we'll just come back to our breathing. Just bring your hands apart. So we're just noticing the space in between the hands. And we'll just keep the breathing moving. Now, all I'm going to do, this is just a little example on how much our body responds to our mind and the way the energy moves through it, is just, so you notice this space. It's a neutral space at the moment. We haven't really sort of put anything into it. We haven't put much intent other than to feel. Already the sensations may be increasing. There's a range of different things that might be happening at this point. And so as we connect with this and we're breathing, just whatever is loving to you, whatever you're grateful for at the moment, like really connecting with that highest form of love, even if that is just pure presence with your hands at this point. Like the love that a child seeks is often just presence. It's just that. And so we could kind of see that as almost like a pre-manifest form of love in a way. But you can sort of add any flavor you like to it, whatever that is loving to you, and then just continuing to notice that space between your hands, what's happening. Continuing to breathe. Now consider this, we're concentrating power that's moving through the body. All we're doing is we're using our ability to focus and connect with this sense of love and experience its presence here and now. So we spend so long seeking love, seeking connection, seeking all of these things.
Mandy said, "This is so cool. Definitely feeling warm," she said.
Yeah. So what we're doing here is we're connecting with the presence of this force that's here and now in the body. And it's a wonderful thing because it's not outside of us. And so as we connect with this, we could then bring it to, let's say we want to connect with the body further. Maybe there's some tensions that we're feeling within the body, or maybe there's some pains, or a sense of there's a strong place that maybe is uncomfortable. We can then take that and bring that to whichever place that we would like. So we'll just spend some time. I'm just going to go to my diaphragm.
I'm going to my shoulder.
Yeah. Okay. So as we're here, we'll just keep breathing and keep connecting with that force of love, right? So we're continuing to feed the body with life force. Connect with that loving intent. And then just really honing into just the pure level of sensation. And initially, things may come to the surface. The receptors on our body already start to open up, and we may start to feel an increased level of sensation in that area. Sometimes it can be a bit uncomfortable. But there's now more life force moving to that area. And it has a healing effect. We all have the ability to self-heal, and we all have the ability to heal each other. I've seen this, I've trained it so many times that it is not just a gift that is gifted to a healer. We all have an inner healer, and we can accelerate that process through our breathing, through our presence. Now, you asked earlier about it's an affirmation or a incantation, which can be helpful. And so as we're connecting with these areas, because the way I see and experience things is that it's not just me doing it. We are in participation with something greater, a universal force. You could call it whatever you would like. We could call it God. We could call it, I don't sort of have specific words for it these days, but the very force that connects us all, if you're in Star Wars, you would say the Force, but it's a real thing. And often it's difficult for the mind to comprehend, but we can open to that. And so this incantation can be really helpful of just when we're connecting with different areas, we can say maximum healing that serves highest good, please. And this,
I come to say this for those of us that are not Australian. That last part is always hard to understand. It's maximum. What to say this again?
Maximum healing that serves highest good, please.
Please. That's right. Okay. I always use the please part at the end. I love that.
Yeah. So this little exercise can be used in so many ways. And when we're working with our body, rather than trying to push it so far as if there's something wrong with it and it's broken and we need to do something to change it, we need to stretch, we need to do all, that's great. but what is the starting point of where we're connecting from? And then we can let things flow from there. And this very core intent was the very thing that brought my whole body back into alignment by continuing to meet it with that. Yeah.
Well, and I think I never can quite remember. It's maximum healing for my highest good, please.
Yeah. Maximum healing that serves highest good, please.
Serves the highest good. The thing that I think is super important is that life force is breath.
Yes.
And I just want to really underline that for people. And I don't think anyone you feel like I'm kept alive because of my life, because I breathe. But we don't say to ourselves, oh, that actually is how I access life force. It looks like we got, Diane says, my fingers are warm and tingly. She placed them on her shoulders and could feel the heat transfer. She did have that had difficulty keeping her breathing steady. Would you like to comment?
Yeah, it's common. It's common in the beginning that can happen. And with that, we just meet it wherever we can, and for some people, because we're also, like, physiologically we're rapidly changing the biochemistry of the body. And so doing that gradually is helpful. And so and just meet it where it's at. If your breathing needs to slow down, then slow down, and then we can keep coming back to it and building it over time.
So there's just one more thing I want to speak about, and then I want to be able to give you a chance to talk a little bit about your work and how people can find you. Is this idea of not looking at anything as though there's something wrong, but instead actually holding space for it to be. And I think for a lot of people, I just think that is like, they're like, nah, right? It's just so wired that there's something wrong and that we fix it. And that's what makes us feel valuable. And so when you're walking us through that experience, that was really one of the things I feel like is there, which is that's what's really important, is that wherever you meet the discomfort or the pain or the tightness or whatever it is, that it's actually not about changing it. It's truly about coming into relationship with it and honoring that it exists.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's like, often the feeling of healing doesn't match the experience that we want or that we think it should be. And it can be uncomfortable. And so that can then trigger us back into all of those times when it was uncomfortable and how we didn't like it. And then that keeps recreating it.
Yeah.
Which is the thing. And so initially that may happen, and there's compassion in that, of seeing how, like, where these things have come from, how we learned these things, how we sort of brought this back onto ourselves because we didn't know any different. And so it can be a contrast. So rather than sort of trying to force that process, it's a continual sort of continuum of, like, I sort of see it as, you might see all these things and is like, oh, my cup is so dirty, it's filled with mud and muck. And, well, how do we clean that cup? Like, we keep pouring fresh, clean water into it. And initially it will be stirred up, and then it will start to flow more and more, and it'll overflow. And eventually, if you keep flowing that clean, pure water into the cup, you're left with a cup with just clean water. And that's the same thing of looking at, what is the source that I continue to give to myself? And that can be hard to grab. And it does, it takes self-belief. It takes faith in maybe something that's bigger than just our own limited perspective.
Yes.
And opening to that continually. Yeah.
That was awesome. I could feel you there when you were saying that. It was awesome. So, all right, we have about 3 or 4 minutes. Could you just share a little bit about what you'd like people to do with you and how they could connect with you? And I will just say to all of you, sign up for his newsletter. It's just an encyclopedia full of connection to the body and well-being. It's amazing. But anything else you'd like to share?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you can learn more about my work at my website, which is movementmonk.xyz or XYZ. And yeah, you can get access to my newsletter where I share weekly videos, and we go into depth into all of these things and share lots of just really open experiences. And my goal is to like humanize the process of working with your body and connecting with the somatic environment of your body. And I have a free 2-day course that people can go through. It's called the Physical Freedom Blueprint. That will also give them access to the newsletter as well. And that'll give some sort of practical examples of some of the things that we can explore to get started, and then can go from there. And so, yeah, and if people want to reach out to me, I like to make myself accessible. And I do also work with a small number of people one-to-one as well to focus on individual things, because it's an individual journey as well. So
You also have an app, though. Did I catch that?
Oh yes, yeah. So I've developed an app called Movement Plus, and that is a place where basically all of the practices that I create and share and record, we put that in Movement Plus, and then you can basically go through. We've got 3 areas to focus on: regulating the nervous system, rejuvenating the health of the body, and then expanding our movement capacity. And yeah, so you can have a look at that. That's all available through our website, movementmonk.xyz, as well.
All right, that's awesome. I cannot tell you how completely, I don't know, just delighted that I get to share the planet with someone like you. And I'm so grateful that you are here to help all of us learn this so important way to be healthier and to live fuller lives and to find freedom inside of ourselves. And so thank you so much for taking your time to share your insight, your wisdom, and your journey, your own vulnerability with all of us.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And then next week, the whole show is on freedom. So for those of you who have been following my growth-oriented variety show, that's next Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Post the contact info. Yeah, we need to do that. You're talking about, Diane wanted to know the contact info. Let's see, I don't really know how to post here. Okay, I will figure out how to do this after the fact. We'll give everybody your email, your website, and we actually did it in some of the show notes as well.
Wonderful.
Let's see, where are we? 8:55. I think there was one more thing I was going to mention, and now I have forgotten. Oh, now I remember what it is. One of the things that kind of blew me away is I was watching some of your videos, not all your videos, but some of them. And there was one video where your arms looked like they were 10 feet wide. And I just want to leave everyone with this prompt to go check out his videos and see what he means by more space and freedom through all this movement work, because it's like it was just like your whole body was like Stretchy Man or something. It blew my mind. And so, do you know the video I'm talking about where your arms go way up?
I was trying to think about that. I can't actually recall the specific video that might be, so people can have some fun finding it. And
I'm not kidding. It was kind of like because I am so in this space right now, right? That's how I met you and how we started to work together, of really wanting that kind of movement in my own body. And so looking at that, I thought, wow, I would like it if my arms did that too, you know.
Go gadget arms. Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
I was just going to say we are all far bigger and far more capable than what we inherently know. And yeah, I really enjoy the process of stretching that for people. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. All right, everyone. We will see you next week.